Help! My child is afraid of the dark. Hi, guys. I'm Leo. I'm your co host to Mystery of the Soul podcast. I'm a psychic medium, a Reiki master, an EFT practitioner, and a shaman. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget, take a minute, subscribe, and follow wherever you're following us. And today's topic, I want to talk about our children. And even if we think back to ourselves as a child, we were, or they are now, afraid of the dark. Where does that come from? A lot of the fear comes from, you know, the media, um, our upbringing as far as like maybe the fears our parents might have had growing up, just exposure to certain things in our environment. If you think back, when I was even a kid, I can remember being terrified from the dark. And, I was the type of kid, I was afraid to like I remember at my nana and papa's house, my mom's parents, they had a dark cellar. So, and it was kind of like the door to go down cellar was kind of creepy, and it was dark down there. And so they had the washing machine down there and the dryer. So that's where they did, washing their clothes. My papa had like a workshop down there that he did some work with. But I always felt uneasy going down into the cellar. And so oftentimes I would be afraid to go down in the cellar by myself. So I would want my mom or dad to go down with me, or I would be kind of holding my breath trying to go down. I would want to make sure that like I turned the light on before I went down so I could see and anticipate what am I going to run into. Even though there may not have been anything right there, I felt a lot of stuff coming at me that was overwhelming in energy. The same thing with like attics. People don't like cellars, and they hate attics. And again, my Nana and Papa's house, they had a spare bedroom upstairs, and the spare bedroom had a door that you opened up, and then there was a stairway going up to the attic. And that room, I always felt there was like a few times or off and on that I would like spend the night, on a weekend night with my Nana and Papa. And I was always uneasy, sleeping in that room. It was like I was so overwhelmed and so anxious and terrified that, I would be almost shaking. I would be sweating. And I was the type of kid, I would want to like pull the covers. And I did. I pulled the covers up over my head. And my head's covered. I've got my head on the pillow. I feel like something's there. I'm sweating and I'm almost holding my breath. And as I'm under the covers, it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. But I'm so afraid to take the covers off my head, and I'm afraid what's going to be there. I don't know if anything was going to be there or not, but I was feeling, pretty anxious and terrified because this overwhelming sense of something that I could not see was there, whether it was, energy from, could be people's moods, or it was actual energy from stuff like on the other side of the veil there. Maybe spirit energy of like, could have been like, relatives that had passed on. It could have been energies or people that have passed on connected to the house. I don't know. So anyway, why I'm doing this episode today is to kind of just bring the attention to, and acknowledge like being afraid of the dark is a thing that we, a lot of times dealt with as a kid growing up. And as parents, as we become parents, and our kids get older, they, you know, learn fear. And, we may instill that fear in them from our own phobias and fears. Or, they could be scared of something, that frightens them from seeing something happen. But oftentimes, you know, when we're born, we're kind of born with a sensitivity. And, you may have heard the term like highly sensitive people or empaths. And our radar and our barometer, with our almost like our extrasensory perception of something that we can't see or touch or hear necessarily with our physical senses, we have like this knowing that we can kind of like sense something outside of that realm. And it creates that fear because it's unknown. And so, many times, often parents struggle as their kids are growing up, from, toddlers to a little bit older. I know for myself, it was like the 7 to 10 range where I was kind of old enough to kind of understand things. And I actually slept with a nightlight for many years just because, I needed a little bit of light in the darkness to kind of feel a little safer. Um, so, a lot of parents have trouble, getting their kids to bed at night. And, parents often get frustrated because, they feel like, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of, or, why are you worrying about this? And I just can't get them settled down. And, maybe it's other reasons. Maybe they're hungry, or if they're, an infant or toddler, okay, maybe they need a diaper change, or it's the temperature. Maybe they're feeling cold or hot, but maybe it's none of those things. And maybe they're actually picking up on things that we can't actually see or hear with our physical senses. And so, the most important thing for parents and for kids growing up is for parents to be open minded to maybe other possibilities, and to not dismiss maybe the feelings of what the child's going through or what they're experiencing, and not dismissing it. So the best thing, I would have loved, because, I felt, even growing up as a kid, I felt a little self conscious of even saying why I was scared. And so a lot of times, like, your kids may be experiencing that as well. They're afraid to talk about it, or they're afraid, maybe they're going to be embarrassed to talk about it because, like, as kids get older, um, they don't want the stigma of being like a scaredy cat or being afraid of the dark. Um, but what a lot of kids don't get is they don't get the acknowledgement of like what they're feeling and experiencing. And it's kind of like the same thing. Is, if, let's say, I'll give you the example, if, you know let's say the kid is going outside in the summertime, and they're maybe wearing too much clothing and they're overheating. You want to kind of acknowledge that, okay, maybe we need to put some more, maybe more summer clothes on you, and maybe take the long pants off and put some shorts on, or, instead of the long sleeve shirt, maybe you need a short sleeve shirt. And the same thing on the other end of it too, like in the wintertime. A lot of kids, older, let's say school age, a lot of kids run hot, but parents want to, you know, they expect that, okay, you're going to go outside in the winter, you need a winter coat, and that's what you need, and you have to wear it. But there's a lot of kids that just run warm, and they get outside, and they are like overheating because just their body's temperature regulation works differently than ours. And so they kind of whip off the coat, and they're just not wearing the coat. And you see that with a lot of like teenagers and stuff, and just kids maybe a little bit younger than that. And we just kind of have to acknowledge their feelings and their sensitivities. Um, so, you know, through my Reiki training, I've learned a lot, and learned to kind of acknowledge a lot of things that we can't either physically see, hear, touch, feel, etc. And what I've learned, through that process in my later years as an adult, I can look back and realize, like, okay, I was actually growing up, I was a highly sensitive kid, and I was feeling things that maybe now I can kind of acknowledge. yeah, maybe it was something other than, something that I could pick up on my physical senses. But I feel like now I don't need to dismiss it, or I don't need to feel guilty about how I felt back then. And so I've learned a lot. And with working with the Reiki energy that I work with, the Holy Fire Reiki, um, I've worked at it enough that, as I developed as a Reiki practitioner, when you work with energy, you have to work with your own boundaries and, barriers that you set intentionally, just like physically in the world. We kind of, let's say, in our yards, like we put up like a physical fence around our yard to set up a boundary, a barrier for, anything that we don't want on our property, people, pets, animals, whatever it is. It's the intention of like keeping that from coming in. And so what we have to do is set these intentions of like spiritual boundaries and energetic boundaries. And it requires a belief in this process in order for it to be effective. And so it's kind of like trusting that, you know, when I'm in, let's say, a car, and I'm either driving my car or I'm a passenger riding in the car, like I'm getting from point A to B in this container, this vehicle that is kind of protecting me on my path from going to position A to destination B. But without that, if let's say we were just to kind of not drive our car down the highway or the road, and let's say we just decided to walk or run down the highway, we would be absolutely vulnerable and possibly be run over and hit and not safe. So that just wouldn't be smart. And so when you're dealing with energy or you're highly sensitive, you want to put up these boundaries and these safety barriers, to kind of protect our boundaries and our energy. So I've sort of created, this idea with working with the Holy Fire Reiki energy, this sort of like suit of protection that you can work with your child. And I've kind of created this sort of ritual, you can call it, of get your child and bring them into, let's say, the space where, let's say, they're feeling the most uncomfortable. And, a lot of times it's the bedroom, because at nighttime, that's when they're having the difficulty sleeping and settling down and calming down. And, you know, just kind of bringing them air in there, supporting them in a safe and reassuring way that you've got their back. We can do this kind of thing. And the idea with the ritual is like I've already given the intention with calling in the Holy Fire Reiki energy to kind of work with you. So as you're watching this video, know that the information you're going to take from this, that the Reiki energy is going to work with you and your child. And so the idea is, think of this like a lot of us, we have watched the Marvel movies, and we've all seen probably Iron Man, and probably our kids love this. And the idea of like that suit that was created to kind of protect him. Um, the idea is, let's create this suit of protection for your child to sort of empower them and to give them a little courage and security and reassurance. So what you do is like have your child, take them in this room and have them stand with kind of feet shoulder width apart, and you have their arms out straight, and you can just kind of stand in front of them, and you're going to take them through a visualization, and you can just have them close their eyes and just have them visualize. And you can even have them visualize, if they're familiar with like the Iron Man movies, You can actually have them just visualize that suit if that makes them feel better, or it's just something that they can recall and put like an imagery to it, and have them just imagine as we're calling it in, we ask this Holy Fire Reiki energy to come in with us and bring up this suit of protection to kind of protect my child as we call it in. And so just have them imagine, and it takes a lot of imagination and also the belief in the imagination and the intention then when we put on this suit that this is going to work for us. So we have the child imagine like that all of a sudden that this suit is now starting from the feet. It's kind of encapsulating our feet and lower legs and then our upper legs, and then the suit kind of wraps around like our torso in our body, and it all of a sudden kind of encloses in our arms and hands, and then it kind of all of a sudden kind of tightens up and everything closes and there's no openings, but the suit is safe. The child can breathe in here, it's protective. And then the last part, they're just picturing that helmet and just coming right over their eyes and face and locking in that protection. And just with knowing that now that this suit is covering them, we're going to call in the Holy Fire Reiki energy and ask this Holy Fire Reiki energy to activate this suit of protection. And just consider this suit of protection good for 24 hours. And then you can just kind of repeat this ritual night after night. And the goal with this is, use this as kind of like a bedtime ritual. And over time, the idea is not to have the child use this suit forever. The idea is we start with this and we kind of slowly wean off of the suit, eventually that the suit becomes part of them and they don't even have to go through the ritual. Now, that could take weeks, that could take months, could take a couple of years. It just depends on their comfort level. But eventually, it's something that over time, they will begin to feel safe in their space. And not only safe in that space that they were struggling in, but when they encounter other spaces that might maybe right off the bat make them feel a little uncomfortable, they might have a little reassurance that because I'm suited up, I'm protected and I'm strong enough and I will be okay. And then anything that is making us feel uncomfortable, we can empower ourselves to take control, that we can ask whatever that is making us feel uncomfortable and unsafe and, you know, creating anxiety in us. We now have the power that we're suited up and we're going to say, everything that's making me feel uncomfortable, you need to leave now and you need to go away and you're not allowed here anymore. And when that happens, you will, and your child will feel probably a shift in the energy. And you will begin to feel almost a lightness and less overwhelmed. And the more you do this, I guarantee that your child will feel safer, you will feel less stressed, and they will be able to sleep better. If you want more information on this ritual with this suit, feel free to email me at mccarthyleo@gmail.com. And if you have any other follow-up questions, you can go on my website at leojmccarthy.com. It's leojmccarthy.com. And you can go to the contacts page and you can put in an inquiry or any other questions you may have on any of the other services I provide. But it's as simple as that, guys. It's all about taking back control. And when we take back our control, we're empowered and we are in control. And it's a matter of putting the belief in that we are safe. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Stay tuned for more episodes to come. Thank you.